Hi everyone, welcome to week 5 of English 101 Online. So this video is going to introduce you to our second essay, which is an analysis. And now that we've kind of gone over the writing process in essay 1, from pre-writing to drafting to revising to editing and sometimes doing that all over again, we're going to start this process over with a new topic and a new type of writing. So if essay 1 wasn't your favorite, then hopefully this next essay will give you a little bit more space to practice some of what we're discussing in class. So let's go ahead and get started. The assignments for this week are pretty straightforward. We've got reflection number 4 due Friday. This is going to focus on the artifact that you're going to choose for essay 2. Talk about that in a minute. And then the outline for your essay, not the draft, just the outline, is going to be due this coming Monday. So it's really important for the type of essay we're doing that you take a step back and really plan out what you'd like to say before you start writing, just because of the type of writing that we're doing. So that's why I'm asking you to do an outline this time instead of just pre-writing on your thesis. So let's talk about the essay. When we think about analysis, often we think about advertisements, and maybe you've done an advertisement analysis before, maybe you haven't. But just to introduce this, take a second to look at this advertisement for Nike. It says, "The sneaker makes the man." And it's got a picture of one of their special edition sneakers with the Nike swoosh. So part of what we do when we analyze is we think about how words and images are used to persuade others to do something, to think something, or to feel something. So here, in this ad, a couple things you might notice is the Iron Man behind the words. Also, the colors of the shoe are typical to the character Iron Man. And then we don't even need to know that this is Nike. We know that that swoosh is for Nike. But you think about the words saying that the sneaker makes the man. This is really connecting the idea of being a superhero, superhuman, to the idea of masculinity, of being strong and capable. And ipso facto, they're like, buy this shoe and you will be a superhero. So those pieces we just talked about are part of what you do when you analyze. So a advertisement is one choice you can use for essay 2, but we're going to talk about some others in this video as well. So one thing that you can also do is think about commercials that you see. One of my favorite commercial series actually available is by Progressive. They do these commercials about like I don't want to say middle age, but like 20, 30 something, 40 somethings becoming their parents. And I think I am the ideal audience for these ads. I find them absolutely hilarious. But something that you do when you analyze commercials or advertisements is you can step back and think, who is the audience here? What's the purpose of it? What are they trying to get you to think or do? So I won't play the commercial in this video, but I do encourage you to pause here, watch the video, and then think about these things. Who is this meant for, and why was it made? Obviously to buy a product, but not only that, it's also about trying to get you to believe in something, to think a certain way. So let's talk about just analysis in general. This essay I'm calling an analysis. So when we think of the word analyze, this is a dictionary definition from Webster. It says analyze suggests separating or distinguishing the component parts of something so as to discover its true nature or inner relationships. So to analyze is literally to break down into pieces to see how something works as a whole. We've talked about how our course is called Rhetoric and Composition. Rhetoric is the purposeful use of language to motivate, persuade, or inform. So a rhetorical analysis is going to take these two ideas and piece them together. A rhetorical analysis studies how writers or speakers use words to influence other people. So when you analyze something for rhetoric, you look specifically at the words that are used. So that's why for this assignment, I do encourage you to use something that has written or spoken language that you can analyze. It's the words I'm interested in more so than like the colors or images, because we won't get as much into color theory and other things that can persuade you. So the assignment sheet for essay 2 is on Brightspace. But essentially, the assignment here says we'll be writing a 3 to 4 page summary and critical response to a song or poem of your choice. I am actually going to widen the scope of this, and I'm going to say that you can also choose a speech, a commercial, I've had students choose YouTube videos before, something with written or spoken language in it that you can break down. I'm cool with that. So I want you to choose an academically challenging piece of music or written word. So this means I don't want you choosing Baby Shark or like the jingle to the Kit Kat bar. Those won't give you much to write about, but something longer probably will. So we're going to listen to and read some examples as we go, but essentially what you want to do this week is to choose an artifact to summarize, analyze, and respond to. You can choose a song, poem, speech, spoken word, commercial, a movie speech, but the key is that it's long enough to break down in a couple page essay, but it's not too long that you need 10 pages to talk about it. All right, so an entire movie, too big. An entire album, too much. But one song, pretty good. So we're going to look at a song in a second as an example, but when you think about the rhetorical situation, you think about not only what was written, the text itself, but also who wrote it, why they wrote it, who they wrote it for, and where that occurred. So a really famous example is Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. So here, this image gives you those pieces kind of broken down. Obviously, the speaker is Martin Luther King, but his background and also his sort of prevalence as a speaker influences the effectiveness of his speech. The audience would be those listening to him after the March on Washington when he gave the speech, but also a lot of us today still study what he wrote. So the audience could maybe be a little bigger than just that original, this is who I spoke to. The setting, he was in Washington, D.C., near the Washington Monument, which is a symbol not only of our country and our government, but also I think of the ideals that we hold as a country. And then you also think about things like why he wrote the speech, here to demand racial equality, and there's also others we could talk about. But when you look at the rhetorical situation, I want you to think about not just the piece itself, but when it was written and who wrote it and who it was written for. Those pieces really come together to work persuasively. So one of the options that you have is to choose a song for this essay. I often use Same Love by Macklemore as a good example. Not going to play the song here, but what I want you to do is pause the video. Look up the song, read the lyrics, or watch the video. And I want you just first to ask yourself, what is this song saying? What is it arguing? All right, so pause and come back. Okay, so before we break down Macklemore's Same Love, there is one other thing you need to know about rhetorical analysis, and this is called rhetorical appeals. Some of you may have taken a rhetoric course before and might be familiar with these. You might be in public speaking where you'll discuss these as well. But essentially, there are sort of three basic ways that writers and speakers use language to persuade us. One of those is through emotion, which I think is the most popular and the easiest to point out. That is pathos. Think of the word pity or experience. So pathos is when you want to get your audience to feel something, all right? That's the easiest because I think, like songs, for example, are very emotional. Other appeals are logic. Here, logos, the Greek for word. These are arguments based on facts and reasons. This is what gets your audience to think, okay? And then the last kind of appeal is the one I think a lot of my students kind of are confused by or maybe mix up sometimes, is ethos. And this is the word for ethics. So essentially, this is the idea of getting your audience to trust you. Why should I believe this person, this singer, this speaker, this company, right? Why should I trust their persuasion? Okay. So when you do a rhetorical analysis, you can also think about these things. How are the words invoking a emotional, logical, or ethical appeal? All right. And that affects how persuasive it is. So let's talk about Same Love. So what I might do when I analyze this song is I'm going to pull up the lyrics and just read them. Okay. And I'm looking for anything that's working to persuade me to think a certain way. So this song, as you probably got from the music video and from the lyrics, is about the singer discussing his uncle's experience with growing up gay and not being accepted for it. So the song starts with the artist saying, "When I was in the 3rd grade, I thought that I was gay because I could draw. My uncle was, and I kept my room straight." So this is a good example of ethos. This is the singer saying, "I know what it feels like to kind of be confused about what it means to be gay. And so that's part of why you should trust what I think about this." Then we get to other pieces of this first stanza that also use emotion, like here where he says, "America the brave still fears what we don't know. God loves all his children is somehow forgotten." These are talking about the fear, like homophobia, and how we have fears about people who are different, but also kind of the idea of Christianity and God loving all his children. These are very emotional appeals. These are things that for Americans we hold very close to our identity, right? And then there's also a reference to the Bible here. He says, "But we paraphrase a book written 3,500 years ago." This is a logical appeal. He's saying factually the Bible was written 3,500 years ago. So possibly we might change how we look at it. So regardless of whether you agree, all right, before you judge it, I just want you to ask yourself, can I understand what is being said? Okay? Can I see these appeals being made? Later, once you can say, okay, here's what it's saying, then we're going to argue whether we agree with it or think that it's a quality argument. Okay? So there's a lot of other things in the song we could talk about, but one other thing we want to think about is the idea of kairos, or kairos is Greek for timing or opportunity. So think about when the song, speech, poem was written. Macklemore's Same Love, for example, was released in 2012 before gay marriage was legalized in the US. This was a time of social change. There's a lot happening politically around, equal opportunity, particularly for gay people. So this was intentional. And this was something I could also write about, how that timing of the song makes it more persuasive. So these are the kind of things that you want to think about when you choose a text to analyze. All right, so this week, your goal is to choose something like a song, Same Love, or a poem that you love, a speech, a YouTube video, and decide what you want to analyze in your writing, okay? I am open to whatever uses word persuasively that you can write about 3 to 4 pages on, and something that hasn't been overly analyzed before. So things like Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech, probably you've talked about in class, read about, written about. I want you to choose something that maybe might challenge you a little bit. All right, something that you want to learn more about, that you want to write about, but that you haven't had the opportunity to do yet. All right, looking forward to seeing what y'all choose. Excuse me, this week. You'll just need to tell us in your reflection what you've chosen and then get your outline ready for Monday. Thanks so much. I'll talk to you soon.